Hello, you glorious Godot people. Jan here from Canopy Games, and I wanted to make a really quick video on a nice, easy way to set up some inputs. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a brand new 2D scene, just for purposes of demonstration, and let's call this level. Boop. And I'm going to add a basic sprite. So let's make a sprite, and just drag this default icon over here. And there's our sprite. Let's just move it roughly to the center. Now, this is not how I would normally set up a character, clearly, but we're just moving something around, so just to show it. But this will work on a kinematic body, a rigid body, whatever else you might want to use. So, we now have our sprite. Let's give it a script. And you know what? Should we name it player? Let's name it player, just for the look of the thing. Give it a script, and I'm just going to use the blank values. So, empty template. Here's our script. Okay, so traditionally, what we would do when we're first starting out is we would do this, right? We'd say function input, so on the input event, and then we'd make an if condition, right? So if event dot is action pressed. So if the button is being pressed down, and let's say UI right, for example, and then we could take the position dot x and add 1. Now there's a few things that's going to not great here. The first is we're using the default UI mappings, right? These are supposed to be there to set up menus. So let's add some inputs. Let's go to project settings and input map, and I'm going to add up, down, left, and right. Now, because I'm using a QWERTY keyboard, an English British keyboard, I'm going to be using WSAD, but you can map this to an AZERTY keyboard or whatever you have. So let's go to up, key is W, down, key S, left key is A, and right key is D. Awesome. Now, I also want to be able to use a control pad, so let's put those in as well. So let's go joy axis, and we want the left stick up is up, the left stick down is down, there goes a very loud truck, the left stick left is left, and the right stick right is right. Where'd you go? Nope, left stick right. There it is. Great. So that's all mapped in. One more thing I'm going to do is I'm going to change these dead zones. This is how much you need to move the stick before it even registers. So let's put this a nice low number, 0.05. Very, very low. Won't be great if you have a damaged controller, but it'll help see what we're doing. So back in our script, there's a couple of problems here. First, let's map everything in. So I'm going to take, start a new line and select these and press Control B, 1, 2, 3. Okay, so let's, instead of doing UI right, let's go right. You know what, I'm doing this in the order I wrote them. Up, down, that's not how you spell down, and left, which does need a quotation. I'm making a bit of a mess of this. And right. Come on, Jan, learn to type. There it is. Fantastic. Okay, so up is on a y-axis, and down is on a y-axis. And up is going to be -1, because in Godot, in 2D, positive y is down. The way I think of it, if you watch my mouse, this top left corner is where we're drawing from. So positive x is this way, positive y is that way. Okay, so that looks good. On the left, we're going on the -1, and on the right, the +1. So this will kind of work, but first problem I'm going to run into, let's run the scene, save the scene, and if I press the left key and hold it down, we move 1 pixel. If I tap it, we keep moving it. That's because this function is only being called when a change happens, right? So I don't want it to only run when the change happens, so I'm not going to use function input. Let's use process. So once every frame, run this. Okay, now, let's get rid of that column. Now we're calling something called event, which isn't defined. So let's change event for input. Okay, so we have these inputs, and I'm going to press play, and I use the keys, set this as my default scene, that's fine. It'll now start moving slowly around the screen. Okay, now let's, if I speed this up, we can see something a little bit more interesting. So let's make a constant called speed, and let's call that, I don't know, 3. Let's make this go 3 times faster. And I'll replace all these ones with speed. Good habit to get into, don't put random magic numbers in your script. Let's define them and let everyone know what this is. Now when I run this scene again, we're now moving a little bit faster around. And when I use the left stick, I'm moving at the same speed. I don't have any kind of control here. Okay, so here comes the fun part. Let's get rid of all of this. And instead, I'm going to make a brand new variable. Let's say variable y. And I want to define this uppy downy bit. So what I'm going to do is do input dot get action strength. And this is going to be up. Okay, so what does get action strength do? It's going to see how far has this controller been pushed. Now, if I'm using the keyboard, the answer is either 0 or 1. There is no analog here. But if I'm using an analog stick, it'll be a float from 0 to 1. So the harder I push it, the bigger this value. And here is my favorite bit. We're going to take the up, and we're going to subtract the down. Get action strength down. So, if I'm on the keyboard and pressing up and down, this will return 0, so we won't move. Otherwise, it'll work just fine. Let's do the same thing for the x. So variable x equals input dot get action strength left, right, not left, right, because I want the positive to be on the right, minus input get action strength left. Okay, so how do I use those? Well, third line of code is position plus equals a vector 2 of x negative y. So now if I take this and I put all of this in brackets and multiply that by speed, and I'm going to do the same thing here. So let's go to the beginning, put a bracket here, so right minus left, take that whole thing and multiply it by speed. And I run the game, I can now edge. I can go slowly or fast. To make that a little bit more visible, let's make the speed higher. Let's go to speed 5. Try that again. I'm going to edge over here, or go fast. One more thing you'll notice, by the way, is that we're going faster on the diagonals than we are on the orthogonals. We need to normalize this. However, normalizing it is going to turn x and y into 0 and 1, which is going to get rid of speed entirely. So, how can we fix that? Well, let's get rid of the speed value here. Turn this back down to 3. I'll take my position, and I'm going to normalize it, so it'll now just be a nice clean 0 to 1, which means that going diagonally will still go at the same speed we would do normally. And I'm going to multiply it by a vector 2 of speed. So now when I go back in the game, and if I use the keyboard, we can now see we are now moving the same speed on diagonals as we are up and down. And let's try that with the joystick. Nice, smooth, circular motion. And that is a nice, easy way to set up some inputs in 3 lines of code. So, hope that's useful. Let me know, and I shall see you in a future video.